Alright folks, this is going to be part 2. I'm going to show you the pictures here in a moment. Part 1 of this Tundraland issue, I've already gone over, reviewed that video. Shady company, I pointed out because you should not be ripping people off, period. Especially when they're up there in age and they're battling health issues that are just beyond words. I do this because I care so much about my customers, period. But this one in particular, this set of customers here, they're like family to me at this point. And if they're watching, shout out to Ruger. They'll understand. It's a dog. More than a dog. Anyways, so here we go. I'm going to show you the pictures. I'm going to explain exactly, as briefly as possible, make it within a 10-minute video, what this is, why it's wrong, and what I had to do to rectify the issue. So we're going to start with this picture here. So this picture is just simply the shower itself they put in. And then this picture here is the second shower, the smaller of the two, which was not done as improperly as the other one, but still would never do that kind of work. So this first shower, this is me peeling one of the panels off the beginning stages of the demo. Improper adhesion, so it didn't stick to the wall properly. It was already loose as I was even beginning the caulking or the recaulking stage, as I mentioned in the first video, how this was detected. So then we have your corner shelves here. Okay, this is the backing of it. The material that was used to stick these on was piss poor at best, and I hate to say it that way, but when you can tap your finger on the edge of the shelf and they fall completely off, that's a problem. So improper adhesion. So now as we move further, and I'm going to kind of go a little fast on some of these. So move further along. Okay, so here's another image where I'll show a more detailed image, but you can see the cutaway to where you've got the OSB board here that they glued the panels onto. You can see the gaps that I had mentioned. You've got a gap up there between the green board as well as the OSB board that they had put in. Okay, 3/4 OSB, I believe that was. Did not match the proper thickness of the drywall outside of the shower, which then created another issue. Also, point out the gap. Now here's a closer image here of the gap itself. And you can actually see that plastic sheeting that's cut, that's the vapor barrier. They cut that out, and you can see the cut marks in the woodwork and the studs there. So you can see where I'm talking about, how they cut the vapor barrier and just never put it back in. That's a big no-no. That has to be there. It's not just code, but it just has to be there. You're protecting the insulation, protecting the inside of the house. You need that. So that was cut out. Here's another picture of that as well, so you can see what I'm talking about. Now moving on to the insulation part. So the insulation here should have been a bright pink. It was in the beginning. Not the beginning of my project, but the beginning of putting it in, it was a bright pink. I don't remember the R value on it. However, that's what it should have looked like when I took things apart. However, you can see it's filthy dirty, and it is also mold on two different corners, as you can see. That's a wider picture there, so you can see what I'm talking about if you look at the lower part of the insulation on that picture. That's improper. So I ended up having to take that insulation out and remediate that section there and make sure it was all clean, no mold on the studs, yada, yada, yada. So we've got no vapor barrier, we've got dirty insulation, mold growing on the insulation. Now the plumbing part of this is not as big of an issue to me as the rest of things, but here's a picture of the mixer valve that was done. You've got the PEX that's in there, and you can see how one line is going past the board, basically coming towards the inside of the shower. It should have been behind that one brace instead of outside. That's not that big of a deal. It is a flexible line. I just think it looks ugly. Now, moving on. So here we have another picture of the shower. This is going to be the floor. Now, once I finally got the shower pan out, this is what you see. Basically, they tried to shim the bottom. They left that gap right there by the drain. The drain wasn't even in properly anyways. It was actually when I started taking things apart, the drain was a little bit crooked. on top. So there wasn't a proper bond to the pan. It's two separate pieces. But there's the gap that I'm talking about. It's approximately 5 inches by 9 inches in length. Just a wide open hole. I did not take anything out of that spot. All it is, remove the shower pan, and you get to see what's there. So you've got a little bit of, these shims they tried to put into the pan for whatever reason. I'm not even sure what their thought process was. So that gap right there, as you can still see, that led to movement right there by the drain, which then escalated to the rest of the shower pan, leading to the walls and causing everything to loosen up in the seams. And that was one of the things the homeowners pointed out. Hey, by the way, there's a movement in the middle of my shower pan. They said that was normal. Now, there's still a debate on whether the homeowner, or whether, Tundraland had actually cut that section out for whatever reason, or if that was done originally when the house was built. Doesn't matter. The fact is they put this shower pan there without bracing that spot, causing future issues. So, with that being said, you have all these issues and the screws that they used were improper. They were going to corrode. A few of them already started corroding at the shower pan level. They were using a lot of drywall screws, if you will, for whatever reason. I've found quite a few of those in the OSB board, which I'm not even sure how that held, to be honest. No waterproofing whatsoever. I'll show you this wide angle shot of the shower. This is after I took things apart. There's literally no waterproofing whatsoever in the shower. You can't really tell too much on the picture, but there was some water that got into some of the OSB board. May or may not have been mold. I wasn't really interested in that as much as just getting that out of there quickly in case it was. However, those are the things that I have found. The other shower was pretty similar to that, where there was not so much a mold issue, but an improper construction. They did not have a couple of studs that were missing in the corners to brace the board to on the end of the seam. So they kind of failed at that, which gave the corners a lot more movement, if you will. So that's another issue where caulk was starting to separate because you had excessive movement because you didn't have an extra bracing behind the board they put in. So those are the pictures. And what I'm going to tell you is this is what I had to do to rectify this. Okay, here's an after shot of the shower after it was completed. Okay, and then here's a couple pictures. Also what I had to do in order to rectify it. There's new vapor barrier in there. Okay, I went up 8 mil on the vapor because I want to go over code because I want to make sure it's good. Properly installed. The studding was fixed. I added extra to beef it up to make sure everything lined up. And of course, the shower pan here, you can see that is braced where that hole was. That was done properly, so that way there's no movement down the road. And again, here's the final result after the shower is done. Okay, so now with all that being said, I had to rip everything down, restructure all that. I've dropped in, here's a picture. Okay, so that's a Schluter pan with a drain. So that's before I had it all installed. But that's a product that I use. Again, that's Schluter. Shower pan in there. They did a 0 entries, well, near 0 in this case. All properly done. Using the right materials, the right skill set to do it, the knowledge, and you end up with a shower that is done properly for far less than what Tundraland's $23,000 fiberglass units could ever be. These are custom showers. As you can see, it's not a straightforward pattern. There is that extra shelf in there with the grab bars and all the mosaics, the 2-inch mosaics that are put into this. A lot of detail. This is done properly. Tundraland, I'm at my wit's end. That's why I'm making these videos. I may make more depending on the results or lack of results in this case. So that's what I had to do to rectify this. And at this point, we're still waiting on Tundraland to come forward and say, hey, we're going to rectify the situation. So folks, beware of Tundraland. They do a lot of horrible work and they're not going to back it up. In the meantime, folks, walk by faith, not by sight. I will see you guys on another episode.